Today we're taking a look at the 998D soldering station.
Okay, so I was after a hot air for SMD soldering, and I checked my soldering iron and realised that I couldn't get hold of any new tips for it, so I probably needed a new soldering iron. So instead of buying a single hot air, I went for one of the two-in-ones that you can pick up online. In this case it's the 998D model. There are various other models that are all the same unit. They do come from the Far East and they're all made in China. This has got the manufacturer down as a Yi Bar Tard Co. I hope that is supposed to be Tard Co and they haven't just spelt trade wrong. But we'll have a look. See that there, where they've Y Bar Tard Co. I hope they haven't just spelt trade wrong, you see. So upon opening the box, we can see that is just how the box come. The box came just like that. There was no other anything to it. No polystyrene keeping the top and the bottom. You can see there's some on the bottom. There's nothing really for the side from the side. Now you get yourself a manual. You've got an instruction manual with plenty of Michael McIntyreisms on that. That actually says there, Michael McIntyre is the highest paid BBC male Chinese man. So we've got a load of it's a Chinglish manual, so you got the Chinese bit at the front, and we've got some English. So we've got some English section further on into the back. We've got a spare ceramic heating element for our soldering iron. I don't know, we just saw it there and pop out at the bottom, which again is made in China. I'm not surprised because the whole unit is, but you know, it's a ceramic like the Hakko. We've got our holding bracket and a different size heating element or heat guides, should we say, might be a good term. Our nozzles that stick onto our heat gun. So obviously they guide the heat into a bigger or a smaller spread as you want it. So we got our soldering iron stand and sponge for cleaning the tip, and water tray. It says something about filling it up to a certain level in the manual, so obviously keep that sponge moist. That sponge looks fairly small. They do expand a little bit when you add water to them, so I'm hoping that it does expand to fill the whole of that, otherwise it looks a little bit silly there. See through the iron, just comes straight through there. We've got our iron in the bag and a kind of screw-in connection I wouldn't say bayonet. Is it bayonet? It just locks in, and then that ring obviously screws onto the unit itself, I would think. We got our heat gun, which is actually attached to the unit. We pull our unit out. You can see it's a fairly sizable unit. Take a look at it. Our version of the unit, like we said, is the 998D. As a lot of people do the exact same unit, and they call it different models, like Seiki is the one brand. There seems to be another brand that looks like a HK, but I don't know what's that. It's a HY and an L in a K. Is it a C and a strange N? So I can't quite make out what that's supposed to be, but obviously you can see the 998D there. You got your two power switches there for the SMD heating gun, and your soldering iron. You've got your heating dial for your soldering iron, I would have thought, because down here you've got the two dials again, heating, to select the heat from your air gun and your actual air. So the actual fan itself, you can turn that up and down, so you can select your heat and then choose how much fan speed that you want to put to the, or as they label it, air, to your piece that you're working on. Obviously, you know, it doesn't have to be circuitry work. You could use it like a more accurate heat gun, because it's essentially what it is. You could use that for heat shrink wrapping, things like that. And obviously you've got your digital displays here, which will display the heat output and things like that. Okay, if we take a look at the unit when we've got it all in place, I do recommend the spare nozzles for the or the three different types of nozzles that you have for the heat gun section. I've just put a cable tie, or a tie wrap, or what do you call it, a zip tie in America, or whatever you call different things. I'm going to put that round the handle and through the bag, just to make sure you don't lose them. Now if we take a look at the front of the unit, we can see that we've got the dial at the top, as we mentioned before. That is for our soldering iron. There's a soldering iron in the stand. Now our soldering iron does come with a tip, but it only comes with one tip, and that tip comes with a rubber protector on there. Now you want to make sure you take that off before you turn on the unit. The reason for that being that rubber will burn, because the unit comes on. You see down there it says number 1 on the dial. As soon as that comes on, it's at 100 degrees and the heat is instantaneous, so that will melt at 100 degrees and smell out and smoke out, and probably coat your tip in some nasty melted rubber. But I would keep hold of that, because if you're in a shed type workshop environment like me, like I am here in the winter, and obviously when it rains it can get a bit of moisture in the atmosphere. That can obviously protect your tip. You can put that back on, as long as you always remember to take it off. Now I'll just keep it in your soldering irons tray there. Now when we get to this, now I thought, because it starts when it turns on automatically, as you can see here, it starts off at 100 degrees C, and I thought that's because that's number 1 on the step. As you turn it, obviously it goes up, but I thought number 1 equals 100 degrees, so number 2 maybe equals 200, number 3 300, 4 400, etc. But that doesn't seem to be the case. It maxes out at 450 degrees, as you can see, which obviously doesn't tally up with how them increments are set up there when it goes up to 8 on there. So it's just similar to some cookers, I suppose. It's just a step. Now you can see there that the heater element for the heat gun goes up to 450 anyway. So why they didn't just put that exact same increments on that one, I don't know, because it would have worked a lot better, but they haven't. Now the heat gun, as we've seen there, goes up to 450C, exactly the same as our soldering iron does. Now the heat gun, the bracket, there's 2 screws in the side of the chassis. You remove those diagonally, they are together in that one side. You put the bracket on and put the same screws back in, and then that puts your bracket on there. The heat gun obviously then goes into there. There's a rubber part around here, and when you put that in, if you just give it a wiggle from side to side and pull down, that helps keep it locked in there a bit better. Now the heat gun does start automatically as soon as you pick it up, so there must be some kind of sensor system going on. So there's either a level sensor in there that's been programmed to automatically shut down when it's at rest at a certain level, but that means that when you're using it, sometimes you might actually be at that level and it would shut off, so that's probably not what it is. Maybe there's like some alarms, door alarms and window alarms, there's some kind of a magnetic sensor or something in there, or in the heat gun itself, which automatically shuts it off. Because as you can see, if you just listen, it automatically starts up. As you can see, the display there, and as soon as you put it down, shuts off. The fan shuts off, the display tells you that it's shut off. Now if we take that off, we can see that if we turn up the dial for the fan, this is the air, it's labelled as air, but it's for the fan inside. So that's variable, just like the temperature. So you can choose to have you know, ultimate combinations of heat and fan speed, or air speed as they've called it. You can choose to have a certain amount of heat but a lot of air to melt something, obviously to melt some solder, or you could choose to have a little bit of air with more heat and do it that way, and you've got the variable combination. So when it comes to heating shrink wrap, obviously you can use it for shrink wrap as well. When you solder 2 cables together and you want to shrink wrap over that joint to make it look nicer than some electrical tape, you can use it for that. Basically it's just a heat gun like you're used to an electric heat gun in a smaller package, so you can use it for anything that you used to use your heat gun for, and especially anything around the workshop. So with my planes building and all that kind of thing, a lot of the canopies that they stick in there, and the cowling on the nose and things like that, is kind of weak plastic, so you can actually make your own out of shrinking lemonade bottles. What you have to do is obviously make a plaster Paris mould of the canopy that you're going to make a stronger one out of a bottle first, obviously, and all that. But you can use a heat gun. What that does, you put it over the mould that you've got, and it just shrinks the bottle straight to it. And plastic pop and water bottles are obviously a lot thicker than the supplied plastic canopies, so that's another good use for it for me, and for anybody that's watching this to do with the my RC model, because I'll put the video to and fro from other channels to one channel to the next, etc. Now, like I say, that shuts down, but when it's hot, the manual says, so if we turn that up, a little bit, we'll remove that, so I'll let the heat go up. The manual says that if you put it back in the rack and switch the power off, oh, wrong one, switch the power off, that it's supposed to carry on blowing the hot air. It's obviously not hot enough, but it's apparently supposed to keep blowing the it shuts the heat down, but it keeps blowing the air until the air actually cools the actual iron down to a certain degree, and then it shuts off automatically. Now, the manual tells you to throw the switch and it will do that, but this seems to be doing it automatically without that. So there's obviously that Chinglish manual, they've obviously had a previous model and they've kept some things to do with that. See, it shuts off down, or it does it keeps blowing till it comes down, shuts it off itself. You don't need to throw the switch like the manual says. Again, that's another thing that foibles that you need to look over when buying something like this. But you will get more professional soldering results with something like this than you will with your usual your usual, I think this one's a Draper one, but your usual irons. I've got a few here, the usual irons that you plug straight to the wall with the socket on the end. You will get more professional results with something like this, even though it's a unit that's made in China, and not something like a £300, £400 Hakko. These, like what I was using before, are kind of they're okay, but you kind of have to turn it up to full blast to get it up to a certain level quickly, and then you can dial the temperature back down again to a safe, usable temperature. But I could only find at the minute the 48 watts. That was a 48. That was a 40 watts. These are the only ones I could find were 48 watt tips. I tried them because they were only a few pound, but they're a little bit thicker and they don't quite fit. Obviously I could get the drill out and make the diameter a little bit bigger and things like that, but I don't really want to do that. This was only I was buying one with the just the hot air, like I said before, and this was only for the 2-in-1, so you had the soldering iron and the hot air station in one unit. It was only a few pounds more what I'd pay for buying a new soldering iron anyway, and buying some more and experimenting on some more tips together with what I paid for them, so it didn't really make that much difference to buy a 2-in-1. Overall, okay, we haven't used it yet. Like I say, it is a ceramic, like the Hakko. It is a ceramic inside there, and obviously that just unscrews. I won't do that because it's still at 100 degrees C at the moment, but that ring there unscrews. That the ring and the top bracket falls off, and then you can remove the actual bit and get to the ceramic part. Okay, so if we just take a look at our soldering iron with it taken apart, we can see our ceramic part there. So it definitely is a ceramic part.
The tip then fits over the top of the ceramic part, and then the this final piece here, the ring is kept. Obviously, it'll come off if you take it down that end, but there's like a lip on the end of there, and our screw ring obviously fits on there. Then that'll go. Then that goes over the tip, holds it in place. So if we just put it like that, you can see there we go. The tip fits like that, and then that obviously goes over the top of there and screws into that thread there on the tip of the soldering iron, and that holds that all back down on there like that.
And they have included a spare ceramic part like we saw before. You can see it there just coming through at the bottom. So it is very much like the Hakko irons. I have been led to believe that a lot of these 2-in-1 units, a lot of the Hakko tips and ceramic parts and things like that do actually fit these irons, so you can actually buy them. Although these, especially if you look on eBay, parts for these are readily available. You know, that would be up to you to experiment with certain Hakko tips and things like that. Now, the manual did say that when it comes to the sponge part on the tray on the holder for the iron, that in the manual there was one with a reservoir that you would fill with water and then place the sponge on top, and then it would slowly absorb some of that and expand obviously, and stay moist from that reservoir. But this is obviously just like what we're kind of used to. It's just a regular tray to put the sponge on, so you keep that damp regularly. Obviously that's been changed again since the manual, so bear that in mind. But other than that, you know, you can get you get more like real professional results with your soldering work on your PCBs, and indeed modelling, electrical wiring there with your modelling, for less than you would say with a Hakko or something like that. You don't, unless you're, you know, a corporation that's like some place where I worked before, then doing the soldering on the PCB, then you can get away with you know, something like this from the Far East to give you a professional job for less, or say you know, home business electrics or PC maintenance work. It'd be fine for that.